name is Mr. Baradic, and I teach music at Candeo, Peoria. At Candeo, our mission is to grow wisdom and virtue for a life well lived through rigorous knowledge-based schooling in the classical liberal arts. What is K-8 classical education? A classical education emphasizes human virtue and moral character, responsible citizenship, a content-rich course of study, and teacher-led classrooms. Our curriculum comes from the brilliance of E.D. Hirsch and the Core Knowledge Foundation. In music, core knowledge builds layers of knowledge over all grade levels. Our curriculum, therefore, is sequential. For example, in first grade, students in music class study Mozart, and they study this composition specifically. Which is Mozart's A Little Night Music. That's in first grade. In second grade, they move on and they study something that's a little bit more complex. This is Rondo alla Turca. In third grade, they're not finished with Mozart. They continue by studying his horn concertos. In fourth grade, they're learning about his operas, specifically the Magic Flute and the aria of the Evil Queen. In middle school, they learn about Symphony Number 40, which sounds like this. Okay, so this is just one example of how core knowledge takes a specific composer and builds and layers that knowledge sequentially throughout all grade levels. They study a lot of composers at Candeo. In fact, we start all the way back in the Middle Ages with Hildegard von Bingen, and we travel through the medieval period, onto the Renaissance, and moving on to the Baroque era with composers like Bach and Vivaldi and Handel. And then we move on to Romantic composers like Tchaikovsky and Debussy and Chopin. And then we move on finally, and in middle school, they study 20th century composers like Arnold Schoenberg, where they use techniques like serialism. It's a very well-rounded curriculum, and they come away with a very just rich knowledge about the evolution of classical music. They also learn about music theory. So they're learning how to read music, learning how to read notes on both bass clef and treble clef, lines and spaces. They're learning how to read rhythmic notation, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, tied notes, what happens when you have a dot after a note, all those basic things. They also learn a lot of vocabulary, Italian vocabulary, domain vocabulary, that's all based within the curriculum. We make a lot of cross-curricular connections to the classroom. For example, first thing that popped in my head right now is kindergarten. They're learning about the American Indian tribes, the Wampanoag and the Sioux, and we have a song just for that. So there's so many different ways that we connect and enrich what they're learning in the classroom, whether it's 50 nifty United States and they're memorizing all 50 United States in alphabetical order, or whether it's they're learning the preamble to the Constitution through music. Right? These are things that they will keep with them for a whole lifetime. So it's just a wonderful way for them to learn and memorize these things. Regarding instruments, so what we do is we have kindergarten play the smallest version of the recorder, and if you didn't know, the recorder is a wonderful instrument that was most popularized during the Baroque era, probably by Johann Sebastian Bach. It has a range of an octave and a half, so it'll play, like, for example, from middle C all the way up an octave and a half to this G above an octave and a half above middle C. So it's a complex instrument. The embouchure is very simple. They don't need to really develop their embouchure like you would with a flute or a clarinet in kindergarten, so it's also very perfect for their little hands. In first and second and third grade, they study the soprano recorder. Soprano recorder is about this big, and it's a little bit deeper, a little bit richer in tone, but the fingerings are all the same. And also in third grade, they have the opportunity to play ukulele. The ukulele is a wonderful instrument for that age group in third grade because the content is very rich with folk songs. So it's a perfect marriage between the curriculum and the instrument of choice. In fourth grade, students have the choice of playing, again, recorder. They can continue on recorder, which is wonderful if they choose that. They can also choose to try to learn how to play the violin. And lastly, the cello. So that's fourth grade. They get to choose one of those instruments. In fifth grade, we add 3 woodwinds to that. We add flute, clarinet, and alto saxophone. So in fifth grade, they can choose to play recorder, violin, cello, flute, clarinet, or alto saxophone. In seventh grade, you might be able to see the large recorder back here behind me. Okay, so they play the alto recorder. And it's a wonderful instrument for them to learn all these rich, beautiful melodies by these romantic composers that they study. And it's challenging as well. Let's see, what can you do to help out your students at home? Well, first thing I would say is please ensure that they bring their instruments on music days. Very important that they not miss any in-class instruction. And beyond that, at home, I would ask that you might be able to create a special little practice nook for them where they can go to and maybe tape or put their music on the wall and sit there and practice and make some progress on the instruments. I recommend that students practice between 20 and 30 minutes every other day. If they do that, they'll position themselves for success. So, that is just a brief highlight of our curriculum in the music program at Candio. If you have any questions, I encourage you to email me simply at dbaradic@candioschools.com. That's DBARADIC @candioschools, plural.com. Have a great day.